Millions of years ago, your ancestors had a tail, not a tiny tail hidden under clothing, a real tail, one that extended from the end of the spine and moved with the body. If you could travel far enough into the past, you would see it clearly. And this raises a strange question. If our ancestors had tails, where did they go? Why are humans one of the few mammals on Earth that don't have one? The answer begins in the trees. Long before humans existed, our ancestors lived in forests. They were small primates that spent most of their lives climbing, leaping, and balancing on branches. For these early animals, a tail was extremely useful. It acted like a counterweight. When they jumped between branches, the tail helped them maintain balance. When they ran along narrow limbs high above the ground, the tail helped keep them stable. In a world of trees, a tail was an advantage, and for millions of years, primates kept it. Even today, many monkeys still rely on their tails. Some species have tails so powerful that they can hang from branches using them alone. In a sense, the tail acts like an extra limb. But around 25 million years ago, something unusual happened. A group of primates began evolving differently. These animals would eventually become the ancestors of modern apes. Unlike most monkeys, they gradually lost their tails. Scientists still debate every detail of why this happened, but they believe it was connected to a major change in lifestyle. Instead of moving like monkeys, these early apes began climbing in a different way. They spent more time hanging beneath branches, they used their arms more often, their shoulders became more flexible, their bodies became better suited for climbing and swinging. As these changes occurred, the tail became less important. Evolution has no reason to keep a body part that is no longer useful. Over countless generations, the tail became smaller, then smaller still. Eventually, it disappeared entirely. This didn't happen in a single generation. No ape suddenly woke up without a tail. The process took millions of years. Tiny changes accumulated slowly until the tail was gone. The descendants of those tailless apes would eventually include gorillas, chimpanzees, orangutans, gibbons, and humans. Every living ape today shares this feature, no tail. But even though the tail disappeared, it didn't vanish completely. In fact, part of it is still with you right now. At the bottom of your spine is a small triangular bone called the coccyx. Most people know it as the tailbone. The coccyx is actually a leftover piece of an ancient tail. It no longer extends outward, it no longer helps with balance, but it remains as evidence of our evolutionary history. Your body is carrying a fossil from the distant past, and the story becomes even stranger. Before birth, human embryos briefly develop a small tail. For a short period during development, the embryo has several tail vertebrae extending beyond the rest of the body. As development continues, most of that structure is reabsorbed. Only the coccyx remains. It's almost as if your body briefly revisits an ancient chapter of evolution before continuing forward. Occasionally, babies are born with small tail-like structures. These cases are extremely rare, but they remind scientists that the genetic instructions for building a tail never disappeared completely. Most of the blueprint still exists. It is simply switched off during normal development. Recently, researchers discovered genetic changes that may have played a role in tail loss among ancient apes. One mutation appears to affect how the spine develops during early growth. While the full story is still being investigated, scientists are gradually uncovering the biological changes that may have helped our ancestors lose their tails millions of years ago. But why didn't humans evolve tails again? The answer is simple: we didn't need them. As our ancestors began spending more time on the ground, walking upright became increasingly important. A long tail offered little benefit. Natural selection favored traits that improved survival and reproduction. Since a tail no longer provided a significant advantage, there was no evolutionary pressure to bring it back. Instead, our bodies adapted in other ways. Our legs became stronger, our hips changed shape, our spines evolved to support upright walking. Humans became one of the most successful species on Earth without a tail. Today, it may seem strange to imagine a human with one. Yet for most of evolutionary history, having a tail was completely normal. The unusual thing isn't that our ancestors had tails. The unusual thing is that we lost them. And the next time you sit down and accidentally bump your tailbone, remember this. That small bone at the base